we have John Noble. They're supposed to, and Jasika Nicole, the dancing duo. That's their new Fringe nickname, the dancing duo.
That's
You can pretend to be each other if you want.
We
Something
do.
you could do.
We do.
You know, it's another alternate universe we're going into now. Crikey. Well, welcome and thank you for coming, and welcome to the UK officially, Jasika. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, first of all, Jasika, I mean, we met the lovely John yesterday, but just how did you first get your role on Fringe?
I auditioned, and I didn't know anything about the show except that it was a J.J. Abrams production, and I knew that the girl's name was Astrid, so that she was probably going to be pretty cool. And all of the scripts that I auditioned from were not from Fringe, the script, because they wouldn't let us see it in advance.
No.
So everything that I auditioned for were from other pilots that never made it to television. So every single time I went in, I was reading a different character. It was really weird. I didn't read it for the first time until I was flying to Toronto, actually.
Ah.
I know.
And now, bless her, Astrid gets kind of put through the ringer by Walter a little bit. Now, if there was another alternate universe and she was in charge, what do you think she would make Walter do?
Brush the cow's teeth.
Yeah.
I think that's the most insane thing that Astrid was asked to do on the show thus far.
It seems fair to me. All I did was say clean the cow's teeth. She got upset about it. And I made her scrub the cow's udders one day.
Oh, no.
Clean them. No.
I mean, that must have been an interesting day in the script when you're looking at it and they're like, so Walter has a cow.
Yeah.
That
How did you react to that?
made complete sense to me. I don't know what's so strange about it. I love cows.
It was
Yeah.
funny when we were shooting the pilot and we were given Chinese takeout boxes to eat from. So we're supposed to be sitting and watching SpongeBob, and the cow was in really good spirits,
shoulder.
and she kept like coming into the Chinese food boxes and
Yeah, eating the
going
food.
like that onto us. It was really funny to keep a straight face through the whole thing.
That was in the pilot. It was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was a different cow. We've had 3 cows at this point.
That's pretty impressive.
Thanks.
Fringe, the only show with 3 cows. All right, we have a question from the initial man who's had his hand up already.
Hi, sorry, it's my birthday today, so I thought I'd ask one each if that's okay. But okay, so Jasika, is it hard playing a mother character to Walter? And John, is it hard to be so eccentric in terms, because you really do have to bring out everything, even emotions, in your character?
I'll go first. I would say that the way that the characters are written, it's not difficult at all because Dr. Bishop has a lot of childlike qualities. So it's really easy for Astrid, who likes to be in control and have everything, put in its proper place. It's really easy for her to step in and say, look, Walter, this is what you need to do, this is what you don't need to do. But I think what surprised her is that she's ended up learning so much from him in the process of kind of taking care of him at the same time.
And really, the relationship between Walter and Astrid is something that we grew, because we get on really well, and we would start to create moments between us, and the writers saw that, and so they started to expand on it, and eventually, if you watch season 2, you see that they have some really powerful moments together, and to some extent that was because of what we had created on the set. In terms of the eccentricities, no, it's actually quite easy to play those sorts of things, and it's a lot of fun, and I have some terrific, without the support actors to bounce off them, they wouldn't work as well, but particularly with Jasika and Joshua, they always bounce off those moments, and Broyles, Lance Reddick. My favourite thing, I've been trying for 2 years to get him to laugh, and he always does in rehearsals, and then he won't do it when we shoot. So I've got very good support characters, and playing the eccentricities is really great fun. Thank you for the question.
And in terms of the relationship between Walter and Astrid, one of the things they seem to always wind up doing is autopsies together. Now, did you do any research, the both of you, on autopsies, and how squeamish were you before you shot this?
I'll start there. I mean, I'd been around a bit longer than her in terms of years, and I'd also played a doctor in a television series a few times, so I wasn't so thrown by it. But I think it was a different story for you, wasn't it?
Well, it was, and what's kind of nice is that Astrid is not a scientist. She doesn't have that kind of background. So going into this lab and having to work with him was as eye-opening for her as a character as it was for me. So it was kind of nice to kind of play off of that and be grossed out by the blood and the gore and the guts, because those moments were really real. She doesn't expect, to have her hands in dead bodies, and neither did I at this point in my life.
We have a question for the young man here.
Hi, yeah. I just had a quick question for John. You talked a bit about how you developed the character Walter Bishop. Where did the voice evolve from?
The accent we use, or the voice? Is that what you said, the voice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the actual vocal quality comes from a man who is defeated, who is unsure of himself. So that slightly pitched, elevated voice is a man who is very unsure of himself. That's a character point. The accent what I developed there was what we call transatlantic. Start with Harvard, Boston, which is a fairly conservative accent in America, and then give it that the academic. Many academics have got a sort of a neutral accent because they work all over the world. So we added transatlantic to it and came up with the Boston transatlantic accent, which is really, you can hear it if you listen to professors at Oxford or something. That was but the actual the hesitation comes from his own insecurity and inability to communicate. It was an interesting process of developing that. Yeah.
We have a question remaining on the front here with the lady.
I love the 1940s musical episode, and if they did another one, would you like Astrid and Walter to have a duet, and if so, what would it be?
Yeah. And I think they should be dancing together as well.
Yeah, just so she can make me look like I got two left feet, because she's a brilliant dancer, you see.
Oh, hush.
But we want to do a dance together, don't we?
Yeah, I think that would be completely within the realm of the world that Fringe has created, like Walter would absolutely grab Astrid while he's wearing a bloody apron and start dancing with her. That's not, too wild or zany for the show, I don't think.
I think it'll happen. I think there's a natural progression in there, and we just haven't had a chance to do it. But seriously, I think that thing will happen. Maybe not choreographed, it may be just something that comes out of their work in the lab. We should do it. We'll do it. We'll do it in season 3, promise, and you can watch it and say, that was because you asked.
Yes, it's going to be dedicated to you, Naomi.
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of characters and the relationship they've got, how do you want to see that develop over season 3? And also looking at the alternate universe, Astrid and Walter kind of aren't in that. So how do you think we'll see them as a relationship, and how do you think we'll see them develop more in that kind of time and space?
I don't know. The Astrid in the alternate universe is a completely different character, and she works she still works for Broyles, but she doesn't have any contact with Walter that we know. So I'm not sure where the writers will take that. I can promise you this, that the relationship between us, Walter and Astrid, will continue to become very, very, very rich. And it already is, but it's close, very dependent. We would die for each other already, and that'll become more so. The other side, it's wait and see.
And how did you, when you first found out about your character Jasika in that, what was your reaction to it?
I was super excited because essentially I'm getting to play, just like John is, we're playing two completely different people with different personalities and different histories. So that's really exciting to be on a show where you're able to explore, so many different things in the same plot. But specifically with the alternate Astrid, she has Asperger's, she's autistic. And she is among a group of people that was groomed to be able to read streaming data and make snap decisions based on logic rather than emotions. And so that's very different than the Astrid that has been introduced in this universe, because she's super sympathetic and she's really sweet and kind, and the other Astrid doesn't really have those qualities, although she might be sweet and kind, but she doesn't express it the same way. So I'm really interested to see, I don't know if they'll ever meet each other or if the alternate Astrid will meet the other Walter in this universe. I think that's going to be really dynamic when the people we've already met see the other Astrid and how different that she is there.
It's interesting to note that in the first draft of the finale, Astrid was written as Walternet's assistant. And I think the writers realised it was the waste of a character, and then instead of that, they came up with this extraordinary Asperger's. We've only seen a hint of your character so far, but I think she's going to turn into a most interesting character, more interesting than just having her as an assistant to alternate.
And John, part of Walter's character is he's very scientific. He's a scientist with an incredible breadth of knowledge. You convey that so well without even, as if it's like pauses there. And how did you learn to kind of get that across? And do you have a love of science away from the show?
I have an enormous curiosity, and Stuart, and I have read, I'm not a scientist, but I do read with absolute fascination about science. And so for me it wasn't, the logic didn't defy me at all. I could follow it, and provided I can follow stuff, I can say the words, you know what I mean? So I follow the logic of everything I do and say, and even though it comes out sounding like gobbledygook, it's not to me. And if there's ever a passage that I don't understand, then I research it. If I still don't understand, I go back to the writers. And sometimes they've made a mistake. We always make sure that we know what we're talking about, even if it's, way out there fringe. Because otherwise, you can't act it otherwise.
Yeah. And a question for you, young man?
Hey, it's me again. I was just going to ask something to John. Playing the role of Walter Bishop, you're sometimes very angry and very scientific and very logical, but then more recently we've seen a Walter Bishop that's very emotional and really needs his son because he realises he's the only thing left for him. So how do you convey that?
Well, how I convey it is what you see on the screen. I'm sorry, I don't mean to give you a glib answer. To me, those emotions make complete sense. Any parent will tell you that the most critical thing they have in their life is a child. Why? It's nature, perhaps. So the loss of a child is beyond bearing for people, yet it happens all the time. Walter, having lost his child and got him back now, has all of that depth of emotion. And because he's like he is, and he's fragile, his emotions are close to the centre, and he's always thinks something's going to go wrong, because in his life it has. But playing it is I don't know. I think the emotional scenes are well written. I actually think they are. And again, I get amazing support from these guys in terms of playing those. I've had two extraordinary scenes with Jasika where it was just so, you could it was so tense because of the moments we were able to create. That's not hard to do emotion then, because it's so truthful. I don't think we ever have to fake emotion on Fringe. We find it within ourselves and within our relationships.
And interesting, over the last season, certainly for Walter, the change in relationship between yourself and Peter, it went in the first season from him fathering you to now switching it back and you fathering him. When did you know that was going to happen, and how did you suddenly change that subtly? Because it was very subtle at first, and then it's kind of grown over the last course of a few episodes.
Yeah, I think it was a natural progression. I don't think there was anything else we could do, and by doing that, we've now earned this crisis situation where.
A lady with the dyed purple hair and husband who's a Capricorn fan, please make their way to the information desk at the front of the hall.
You're going to need more description than that, I feel.
Lady with a dyed purple hat and a Capricorn husband. That is very cool. I can't remember what my question was now. What
It was the relationship between you.
So it was a natural progression. Now that Peter has found out that he was being lied to and cheated, he's gone away again. So what we have to do, and this is very deliberate, is we've built the relationship, we've broken it down. Now we will rebuild it, and that's a real challenge for Josh and I. But we're on for it. We talk about it all the time, rebuilding that relationship.
And Jasika as well, for you, there's an episode that sticks out for me where you and Walter went to Chinatown. And the whole episode was a real turning point for your characters. How did you find to get that chance to be with John outside of the lab, doing all of that, and how do you think it changed the relationship for the both of you?
Well, it was really exciting for Astrid to get out of the lab, just because all the fans of the show really wanted to see that, and it was exciting for me, to finally play something different than chopping up bodies. But I think even beyond that, it was the first time I think that Astrid realized that she didn't have just a business relationship with him, that she had a friendship with him. And I don't think that ever hit her before until she realized how upsetting it was for him to be gone and her not know where he was or how to get to him. And she was scared for him. And she's an FBI agent. You know, she's supposed to be prepared for this kind of stuff, but she was emotionally invested in his disappearance. And of course she got in a fight. The triads beat her up in the lab. But what was so wonderful was, you know, we'd read the script and we were very excited about it and everything. And then when it was time for us to shoot that last scene, when Walter's character walks in and finds her that way, we were just rehearsing it. And I had my makeup on, so I had like the blood and the glass in my hair. And he came in and his whole face fell apart as soon as he saw me. And we both locked into each other, and I don't think we intended to play it as emotional a scene as it ended up being, but it was hard not to play it that way. We realized that both of us had so much at stake in losing each other. And so it was this really beautiful moment, and it was the first time that I'd had a chance to play such an emotional scene on television, and I was so thrilled that I got to do it with him because he's so wonderful to work with on screen and off screen, obviously. But it was a big deal, and I think that the people who watched the show really connected with it as well as us.
But on the other side, working in Chinatown is really funny because the Chinese people don't stop for cameras. And they just keep on walking. So all of those scenes of us bustling through Chinatown was all of these old people coming past and elbowing us. They wouldn't stop. You know how in film they close off streets? No way. So it was weird.
Yeah.
There was just people coming by and elbow, and you say, oh, and you say, oh, hello, and then what? And so we were just doing this literal bustle. It was such fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, they weren't extras. They were just people on the street trying to do their shopping.
Just doing their shopping and taking no notice of us whatsoever, except pushing us out of the way. It was very cool. And that lovely Chinese lady that played
that found me.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, the one whose robe he was wearing at the end of the episode.
Gorgeous. Took me home.
Astrid was jealous about that. Nobody
Yes.
needs to be having a love affair with Walter except her. Let's get that straight.
We have a question for the young man here.
Hi. On the show, you have a long list of variable names for Astrid. You've called her Asterix, Asteroid, Aspirin, I think. Where do those names come from? Do you make them up on the fly? Do you have like a never-ending list? How's that managed?
It was a writer's ploy to start with. It was a writer's ploy, and then, of course, we all caught on to it, and we would suggest our own. But we've suggested a few that they won't take, for obvious reasons. Words starting with A, and they say, no, you can't use that. But and then what you'll notice, though, is as Walter's got better, he will call Astrid occasionally. This is really planted. And then he'll, in a moment of intense concentration on something, he'll call her aspirin again. But that's a deliberate plot we're doing. So oh, shush. So now he calls her Astrid a lot more.
Next is going to be, what'd you come up with? He's going to call me Agent Farnsworth. So stay tuned for that in season 3.
Oh, and if you, say for example, if you were, you had the Cortexiphan trials, and both of you grew up to be Cortexiphan children, what kind of abilities would you like to have?
I know what ability I would like to have. I would like to be someone who doesn't need to go to sleep. Like, who doesn't need sleep to stay alive. That would be my superpower.
What about you, John?
It's really hard, isn't it? Every gift comes with a penalty. So whatever great gift you have, you're going to pay the price of it, as we found out with the Cortexiphan children. I think it would be lovely to have the gift of clarity, to not be able to see things without judgment, without prejudice, to have that absolute gift of clarity. But I don't know if you could do that, frankly. But that, for me, that would be a gorgeous thing, to be able to have absolute clarity on what I saw, to understand things, to understand people, to understand their motivations. That would be very cool.
And what was it like then? Because one of the last things we saw from Leonard Nimoy in his career was to be on Fringe. What was it like when you found out he was retiring, and what was it like to work with him?
that he was not intending to come back to Fringe really after an earlier appearance, and I spoke to him and I said, you know, it's terribly important, and the fans want to see they want to see the William Bell Walter Bishop payoff, and we talked about this, and then fortunately he went to the writers, yes, I'll come back again for that payoff, which for us was a huge honour, because you're dealing with the #1 icon of science fiction. There's no question in my mind. And when he came back, he was such a trooper, because he had these huge slabs of dialogue. We work at an insane pace, believe me, and the man is 78, and he was up with us all of the way doing really intense stuff. I did some... Oh dear God, she's so loud. I did some really intense scenes with him, and it was a joy. We really enjoyed each other, and then I did the final scene with him, his final scene where he died. Possibly one of the high points of my career, I'd have to say. A true gentleman and a great professional.
And we got time for one final question for this gentleman down the front.
There's quite a lot of humour in the show at certain scenes. Have you ever had any funny moments on set when trying to do some of the more light-hearted scenes?
They're all funny.
I know. I always say that we're filming a comedy behind the scenes of the actual show, because you know, I think when you're working on a television show that has such serious subject matter, I mean, we're surrounded by cadavers all the time. So I think it's important to maintain some kind of lightness to what we're doing, you know, and not take it so seriously, because death is a pretty scary thing. But we also get along really well with each other, and it's hard not to enjoy each other's company a lot. But one of my favorite things that's ever happened was when John called me Afro instead of Astrid. And it didn't make it to screen, but he came up to me afterwards and he said, "Is it all right that I called you that? I was just kidding." I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." So that's my own personal nickname from John.
You have to keep it light, and we do, and because we get on very well, there's a lot of laughter and a lot of carrying on, but it's all towards a purpose. There is no time on a television set for clowning around in terms of being a distraction, but we have to amuse each other, and we do. So, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a massive round of applause for two fantastic people, Jasika Nicole and John Noble.
Thank you so much for having Jasika and I here to London. You know, we've been here for 2 days, and it's been an absolute delight, and the treatment and the way you've received us has been brilliant. Come up, darling. And you know, and I always feel very thrilled to work with my favourite actress, and here she is. Do you want to say anything?
This is my first time in Europe, and everyone has been so hospitable and kind and friendly, so thank you so much for welcoming us. Hopefully we will be back next year.
Thanks again. Bye.